He prayed the prayer quietly at first. Not because he lacked faith, but because he believed God heard whispers just as clearly as shouts. Every night, when the world went silent and the weight of the day finally settled on his chest, he spoke the same words. God, take this away. He never asked for riches. He never asked for fame. He didn't even ask for an easy life. He asked for relief. The weakness had no clear name. Some days it felt physical, like his body was betraying him. Other days it was emotional, like an invisible weight pressing down on his spirit. And sometimes it was spiritual, a constant reminder that no matter how much he believed, he was still fragile. At first, he was confident God would answer quickly. After all, wasn't God a healer? Wasn't God merciful? Didn't Scripture say he delights in helping his children? So he prayed with expectation. Days passed. Nothing changed. He prayed harder. He fasted. He read Scripture late into the night. He listened to sermons about faith and miracles. Still, nothing changed. The weakness stayed. Weeks turned into months, and his prayers slowly shifted. They were no longer filled with confidence, but confusion. God, did I do something wrong? Is my faith not strong enough? Why do you heal others but not me? He watched testimonies of people whose prayers were answered instantly. Cancer disappeared, addictions broken, chains shattered overnight. He rejoiced for them, but privately, something inside him cracked. Why not me? The silence felt louder than any answer. There were days he smiled in public and broke down in private. Days when he felt strong enough to encourage others, yet weak enough to question everything once he was alone. And still, every night, the prayer remained the same. God, take this away. One evening, exhausted beyond words, he stopped praying the long prayers. No fancy words, no strength left to perform faith. He simply sat in the darkness and spoke honestly. I can't do this anymore. For the first time, he didn't ask God to remove the weakness. He asked God to explain it. That's when the answer came, not as thunder, not as fire, but as a quiet truth that settled deep within his soul. My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. At first the words frustrated him. Grace, power in weakness. It felt like a spiritual excuse, a beautiful sentence that didn't change his reality. He wanted healing, not poetry, strength, not philosophy. But the words stayed with him. They followed him into the next day, and the next, and the next. Slowly, painfully, he began to understand. God was not saying your pain doesn't matter. God was saying your pain is not wasted. He realized something he had never considered before. What if the weakness wasn't a punishment? What if it wasn't a failure? What if it wasn't a sign of weak faith? What if it was a place where God chose to dwell? He began to notice changes, not in his condition, but in himself. He listened more. He judged less. He spoke with gentleness instead of certainty. People who were hurting felt safe around him. They didn't feel preached at. They felt understood. When he spoke about God, it didn't sound rehearsed. It sounded real. His weakness gave him credibility. The very thing he prayed against became the bridge between him and others. One day, someone told him, I don't know how you still believe after everything you've been through. He almost laughed. If only they knew. It wasn't that he was strong. It was that God met him where he was weak. He began to see the pattern all through Scripture. Moses stuttered. David was overlooked. Gideon was afraid. Paul carried a thorn that never left. God never waited for perfect people. He worked through broken ones. The weakness didn't disappear, but it stopped defining him. Instead of asking God to remove it, he began asking God to use it. Show me how you want to be seen through this. And God did. Doors opened, not to stages of applause, but to quiet moments of impact. Conversations that changed lives, words spoken at the right time, presence offered instead of solutions. He discovered something most people never learn. Miracles don't always look like healing. Sometimes they look like endurance. Sometimes they look like peace in the middle of pain. Sometimes they look like staying faithful when leaving would be easier. The prayer was answered, just not the way he imagined. God didn't take the weakness away. God filled it with his presence. And that made all the difference. He stopped asking, "Why me?" and started asking, "What now?" Because grace didn't remove the struggle. It made him stronger than the struggle. And in the end, he realized the truth hidden inside the pain. If the weakness had left, he might never have known just how powerful God's grace truly was.